Hey guys, Infidel1258 here. In this video from a recent live event, myself and Jamie from SplinterCoach are going to talk about the new tool, SplinterCoach.com, which is tracking your personalized battle history within Splinterlands. It's a tool that'll help you improve, but it's also a form of entertainment as you explore how you're winning and when you're losing and all that data that tells you exactly what kind of player you are in Splinterlands. It's a great tool. Check it out. 7 days free, SplinterCoach.com. But more than that, we're actually going to spend time talking about meta and what's working and what's not, what cards are really cheap and maybe which are some interesting buy options. There's a lot of conversation within the context that come just naturally out of looking at SplinterCoach. So I hope you stick around for this one. And again, check out splintercoach.com for a 7-day free trial of their amazing new app. Thanks guys. Have an amazing day. Bye. There we go. So I've got just my video on and I can see your SplinterCoach page. So you can show us.
Perfect. You see Quicks 295 and 286 at the top?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I thought I would, first of all, Dwayne, thanks for letting me share this with your community. And I thought what I'd like to do is just kind of walk you all through. It's again kind of how I do my videos, just a little stream of consciousness and how I use the tool and what I look for. So again, I think the first thing that I've always wondered, and I think everyone wonders it, right? Like how good of a Splinterlands player am I when it comes to winning percentage? I've always intuitively thought I maybe am a 550, on a good day, a 600 player. And so what's interesting for me to see is I'm actually a 476 player. And watching your videos, Dwayne, you look like you're right about 500, kind of get up to 510 sometimes. Is that accurate?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you had a good observation as well, too. Like there's kind of a fun little challenge that you do with yourself that I've started doing is keep your monthly winning rate above your overall winning rate, and that shows you're improving, right?
Yeah.
And then we have daily, and then the daily 5 and 9. One quick note is we've written an algorithm, and I'm going to continually update it to give you a coach rating. And what that's going to be, it's going to be something a bit more intangible. But because, we're going to have macro data of all the users. So we're going to kind of similar, how there are certain plays or moves or macro plays you can make in chess. We're going to start identifying, what are the most successful splinters and card combinations to use when you have multiple rule sets. So let's say you have Little League and Noxious Fumes and Taking Sides. Are there certain splinters and card combinations that are proving to be best in class? And then there are some that are proving to be worst. And then we're going to essentially, write an algorithm that's going to reward you for understanding what those are and playing those versus, penalize you if you're playing the more, underperforming combinations. Right now, we do have an algorithm that we're going to get implemented within the next couple of weeks. We don't have enough data to do that type of tracking yet. So it's going to be based on a few other variables, but it's essentially going to be like your max score is going to be 1,000. There's going to be the ability to get over 1,000 if you're really doing very well. But it's going to kind of be a 3-digit number that I think people, as they start to anchor themselves on their coach rating, that's going to be another metric where they can kind of see themselves improve or maybe see they're slipping a little bit and try to work on things.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Well, I just wanted to, it's going to kind of, the algorithm is in some sense measuring me. It's measuring me, but it's also measuring me, like, I think in relation to the other performers and how well they're tuned into the true meta. Is that what am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, that's accurate because the algorithm is going to be continually evolving based on what's proving to be the best plays in various combinations.
Really cool.
Yep. And then down here, the daily 5 and 9 pool is going to begin during the month of June. And so we have a wallet where we're going to be filtering a percentage of our subscription revenue into. And then we're going to display that. And we're still working on when is it going to update daily? Is it going to update by the minute? We haven't nailed that down yet, but we'll have that. And then we're also going to have a leaderboard in play as well, too, for the daily 5 and 9 pool, showing all VIP subscribers and who's tracking to earn some of those rewards each month.
Love it. Yeah, it looks great, man. And I really am enjoying it. And I just want to say again, I said this once before on my channel, But I've received other invitations to cover other things and to sponsor other things or to be sponsored by other things. And I've never done it because it was never something that appealed and it was never something that made sense within the context of what I really am about, like Splinterlands and the revolutionary element of blockchain-based video games. And so this is like powerful because it's not just like it's not even just it's not even like there are games that I have already mentioned previously and have never been sponsor of, but maybe one day we'll cover like a game or something like that from a sponsorship perspective. But this is like a tool that just is both fun and useful for the game that I already enjoy and love. So it just was like the perfect thing. So thank you so much for, I guess, approaching me and making that opportunity. Hey, Now Done became a member today. Thank you, my dude. Appreciate you. And for the comments earlier, I saw Now Done was saying something about how, where did he go? He goes, okay, he's talking about how many summoners there are in the game now. And he goes, sometimes it feels really difficult to choose. I totally agree, actually. There are more than one occasion, like when I play. No, in fact, it probably happens every time I play. There's one game I'm going to forfeit because I end up messing around and I try this summoner and then that summoner. And sometimes you're at that 30-second countdown. Hey, Jamie, this will happen to you probably also. You get that countdown, you probably shouldn't switch the team again, but you're really thinking, oh, what about water? And one more switcheroo and I'll see if I can quickly put it together. And then it just ends up, you duff it and you miss it and you end up taking the L. Does that ever happen to you?
Oh, I can relate. I know the feeling of your heart racing when you're down to about 20 seconds and you don't feel good about your lineup.
That's so true, man. That's so true. The heart races and I get this sense of like almost Christmas vibe of like a child where you're about to like wake up and go open the presents because it's like my heart is racing, like you say, and I go, if I get that, I go and you have a couple seconds leeway where even if you add 0 on the timer, you maybe still can submit, and you go and you click it and you think to yourself, come on, go through, and then it goes through and you're like, yes, I got it. So love it. Thanks for the subscription or the membership there, Now Done. And Now Done, I'll tell you, we do members only live events on the channel once a week usually, and those are only for you guys, so come hang out on those ones on Thursdays usually. And then lastly, you'll find member only content on the channel that as a member you'll be able to enjoy too, so check that out. And I see one comment here from Trey Trillionaire. He goes, will Splintercoach's team branch out to other blockchain TCGs? What do you think about like long term and the capacity to implement this sort of, because this is a tool that absolutely, to his question, could be ported and applied to other collectible card games. And we talked about before we went live, we want to get into some of the future of blockchain based video games, and maybe we put this in the back of our pocket here because I think this is maybe a significant conversation for. I do think there's going to be a lot of collectible card games that come out of blockchain because of NFT technology and the fact that you can actually be rewarded for your time and attention. But then two, Splintercoach, maybe do you have a vision for that maybe in the future, or is that just right now we got to focus on Splinterlands and make this what we want it to be? Where are you at there mentally?
Yeah, I forget the user's name, but they read my mind. When we built this thing, it was a priority to build a framework that we can easily, as easily as possible, port this to other games, right? Especially card collectible games. And so that's absolutely in our goal. We are right now very focused. We want to make the Splinterlands version as robust as possible.
Yeah.
And it's funny, my tech partner will keep me honest, but I have so many ideas. Like I want to add historical graphs for, subscribers. So if you've been subscribed for 6 months, you can kind of see your performance by fire, your performance overall, and see it going up and down, and all kinds of other stuff. So yeah, it's a balance of, we do want to port to other games, but we also want to make Splintercoach as rich as possible.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that's exciting to think through that you're already imagining that, because one of the things that I'm noticing, and just one more comment, and I'll let you get back to whatever, if there's anything else you want to show us here. But man, I just love that there are people that are passionate about this game and this space, like yourself. And there are so many others actually. Like there's a growing community of people who are excited and invested and actually expecting something significant here. And then we get development like Splintercoach. Even Peak Monsters kind of doubling down on what they've been doing. there's Splex and there's
Yeah.
Hawks is doing something, and oh man, I've seen lots of great things, man. There's just a growing amount of resources because there's a deep passion, and then there's actually a skill set that's being tied to that passion with people like yourself who are like, I see something here, and I have a capacity to maybe move into that into that open space, and I love it.
Yeah, no, Hawks's resource is great. I recently have kind of graduated into that diamond champion level with my deck. And so his resource kind of helping me understand according to their algorithm, the most powerful cards by level has been extremely helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool. Yeah. And then a couple other things with SplinterCoach as well, too. You can do full sorting by Splinter, right? And so you'll see both the left and the right-hand side of the screen will change when I click on the Splinter. But what's interesting, you see here, I'm overall a 476 player, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Fire, I'm a 439 player, and I'm even doing more poorly this month. And then here, you and I talked about this when you started using the service, Dwayne. You intuitively felt like Kelia was a very strong performer for you.
Yeah.
I came in with the same thought, but look at this. I'm pretty much slightly below my average in water, right?
Mm-hmm.
471. Earth, I'm 495, above average. Life, I struggle. Death, I know you're doing very well in death. I'm not. I'm 459. But Dragon is my top performing Splinter. It's been above 500 most of the time. I've gotten a little bit of a cold spell with Quicks. And then I don't own a Lux, but for those of you who own Lux, you'll have neutral filtering over here as well.
I noticed three things. Your Immortalis is doing really quite well, well above average. Your what's the dragon? Not Quicks, the new one. Lily Shield Paw crushing it for you. And then one more in the death, even though you said death is not, maybe your forte, look at what Astral's doing for you with that's 100 basis points higher than your, right? Like you're like, that's a well above your average. And that's not a small sample size. It's almost 80 matches or whatever. That's Astral Entity. I think people are sleeping on it. The cost is really cheap, and same with definitely Lily Shield Paw. Not that people don't know that they're good, but I think the price points, cards are really dipping lately. So there's some exciting with this sorts of data. I think it's really interesting to think, okay, somebody asked me recently, okay, what would you do for 50 or $100? Well, you can look at this and say, there's certain summoners that they win more than they lose. And it's not just Dwayne and it's not just Jamie. You could see this data with yourself by playing, using the tool for 7 days for free, track that information and see how you're winning. Maybe there are certain summoners that you're going to see trends and you can complement it. Maybe certain monsters do amazingly well, but you're missing a piece that would make them level up. Maybe you're at level 3 with your legendary, and if you go to level 4, it's already winning, but if I move it up, maybe it's going to help even more. I love that sort of utility side of this.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And even another little insight I had here, like you're right. The thing too is this tool actually made the ecosystem a little stickier for me. Like I didn't own a maxed out Astral or Lily when I started tracking my stats.
Yeah.
And I went out and I maxed out those two cards because I'm like, I really want to see how I would do with those cards. Right. The other thing that's fun is check this out. Like I would have never guessed Mother Kala would be my 4th best performing summoner. And what's interesting is she's got a niche, right? She's my only maxed out 3 mana summoner that I own. And so if you look, I'm using her and I'm succeeding in low, 518 overall, right on par for low mana, right? 510, but then even 20 to 29, she's a 563 summoner.
Nice.
And then it starts to drop a little bit, right? 400, etc. So like Mother Kala has a clear role within my overall, Splinterlands play.
This is, really cool. Loving it. Maybe
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, let's spend another couple minutes, getting into whatever important things you want to show here. And then let's maybe move over into, what do you think? We'll get into gameplay and let's convert, we just mentioned about some of these monsters and some of these summoners and how they're doing. I'd love to talk a little bit about what you're learning about the meta recently. And what do you think, where we're at? And even just an investment in cards and where the best buys at. And maybe the tool is pointing us in certain places.
Sure. Yeah. So what I've found is I've been able to validate and then unvalidate some play strategies that I think were working for me. The first and the most obvious is around Immortalis. So you pointed out I'm performing well with Immortalis. And then if you go down here, these are the 5 most played cards, win or lose, that you'll see displayed when you click on the card page. And if you go down here, look at it. So obviously the most played is Mycelic Slip Spawn. And that's a really strong record, 72 and 52.
Yeah.
And then Queen Mycela, 55 and 43. And Uloth is 32 and 25.
Yeah.
Spirit Hoarder isn't in here as well. Oh, and then one sort of meta play that I think people are kind of sleeping on is pairing Immortalis with Goblin Psychic.
Yeah.
Because I forget the name, but because you bring in the Void across the board with Immortalis, and then Goblin Psychic reduces the magic ability of your opponents by 1. And so you're essentially double nerfing your opponent's magic. And in a rule set like Wands Out, I've seen matches both for me and against me where whoever is on the wrong side of that doesn't do a point of damage during the entire game, because of the total nerf.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious. So it was interesting. This whole Immortalis plus the Slip Spawn and the triage, and then throw Goblin Psychic in there was a combination that I thought was working that this tool helped me validate. I'm curious if while you've been playing, have you had any strategies that you intuitively thought were working, and then you're kind of like, yes, they are working because you saw the data?
The one that 2 come to mind. One is positive and one is negative. One is negative, meaning like I was wrong. I thought it was working and I was wrong. And one is positive in the sense of I thought it was working and I was totally right. And the negative one is like we talked about, you mentioned briefly, Kelia. I don't want to pull up my data right now because I'd have to pull away from your screen share, but my Kelia data, and I've grinded over the first week. It was just brutal. I was doing something wrong. And I was losing. I think my data was something like, 2 wins and 12 losses or something with Kelia. And I would see people try the sneak attack speed play. There's a relatively low mana play with the water team where you get Kelia as your summoner. She gets the armor. You bring out maybe Saber Shark in the wild. You bring out Saber Shark for the sneak attack damage. You bring out Uraeus with the sneak attack damage, and the bandit, Pellicor Bandit, and that's like a triple sneak, and they're quite fast, especially the Saber Shark and the Pellicor Bandit. And it's so powerful because they all, even though they're 3 mana each, and you can throw Ruz in there too, 2 or 3 mana each, they end up being focus firing, large damage, melee damage output. Plus the armor makes them quite extra resilient. Plus their speed should partner well with Kelia. All of that in my mind was like a lock and an easy layup. And I knew other people were beating me with it. So I just started to, I thought I was winning with it. I guess I didn't really understand the results, but I truly was getting stomped with that play because I don't have a proper level Saber Shark, I think is what I was learning from it. And I think you need the full picture there if you're going to use that style in the wild. And so that was one where I was surprised about the loss. And the win side, or I affirmed my accuracy, was in the Astral Entity or the Death Splinter and that Redemption play. Because if you, with the weekends available on my team in particular, actually, you know what? I'm going to pop away quickly. I'm going to sneak over to Peak Monsters to show some of these cards. If we go into Peak Monsters, you go over to buy, and you just search Redemption, you're going to see, and then let's focus fire on the Death Splinter, and then just regulars. So you got the Life Sapper, you got the Cursed Slime Ball, and you got Kane. And this actually doesn't include, now we got to add in neutrals, because by the way, I also have Halfling Alchemist, Venari Spellsmith, and Dr. Blight he doesn't have Redemption. That's actually the weakened side of this. So I will often do Cursed Slimeball, Life Sapper, Halfling Alchemist in that order, 1, 2, 3. And then I'll bring out Weaken, and you can put in Weaken monsters. You put in, I've got the Undead Priest, I've got the Death Elemental. I've got, if the mana cap is appropriate, I can drop the Cthulhu and the Dr. Blight, but usually this one's doesn't make a lot of sense, because if your opponent does like a big mana monster, because you're using 11 on one, there might be a higher mana cap, so that might not work. But under 20, this thing works, man. This wins, and it's part of why my Dr. Blight is absolutely cruising. Like I've got quickly, I am gonna show it. Monsters. My Dr. Blight data is, look at there, 73 and 58, 557. And I know it's an expensive card, but man, the usefulness of that 4 mana monster is so significant. And yeah, when I look at my death summoners, if I look at my death Splinter and I look at which monsters I'm playing, look at, it's like Undead Priest, Cursed Slime Ball. That's part of that play I just talked about. And then if I look at the summoner data, and I'd have to unpack it really detailed, but I am doing that play, especially. That's why Thaddeus is winning so much. Thaddeus is partnering. He offers a weaken, and then you get a weaken from the Dr. Blight. You get a redemption from the Cursed Slime Ball, a weaken from the Undead Priest. You're talking so few mana, and it works, and it works, and it works, and that's why we're 25 and 14 with the Thaddeus. But I didn't know it was Thaddeus exactly. I just knew this monster play was successful. It really does thrive with Thaddeus, which is a great. If you have these cards, think about that, guys.
You know, it's interesting. This is the first time I've ever seen the most played card with a summoner not be of that summoner Splinter. You really like to lean into Dr. Blight with Thaddeus.
Definitely. And especially for those, because he's got that weaken, and by the time, so when I do that play, like when I do that weekend redemption play, we end up getting these monsters with four, like really low mana, really low hit points. But then the Dr. Blight's hiding in the back line, and by the time he gets to the front, he's gonna have 12 hit points probably. And so I do end up with a tank, even if the redemption play isn't doesn't by itself win it. The Dr. Blight might just steal it because he's got that poison and he's chipping down. He's got that affliction and he's stopping your. If you try and throw like one way the redemption play will fail is if my opponent is playing like a self-healing melee monster like that. What's that death tank?
Cursed Windiku.
Cursed Windiku. Such a great card, right?
Yeah.
If you throw a Cursed Windiku at me while I'm doing this redemption play, I'm not going to win. But if I have a Dr. Blight in there who's going to afflict your heal, who's going to poison your monster, it just it's like the full package. Like this play right now feels to me really meta actually, and it's got to be that low mana side. It's not any old place. Like if we look at the mana cap, just I bet it's 12 and 7 at that low side, and yeah, I mean, but I love it. So those are two ways. One way I found that I was right. One way I found I was totally wrong.
That's cool, and I think that's what's exciting about this is I know I'm guilty of this, but I feel like once I find one or two things that are working, I get pigeonholed on those, right? And I get tunnel vision. Mm-hmm. And now I just learned a new strategy that you've been able to use this tool to see what's working for you. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited to try it out. Yeah.
I'm showing your screen again. Do you want to maybe transition into like we already kind of have? I love this conversation of like gameplay, 3 things: gameplay, strategies, meta analysis, and investment. Like, are you seeing right now, maybe out of the tool and what the tool's showing you, certain cards that are particularly valuable for their win percentage, but then perhaps also simultaneously like really reasonably priced? I think we have seen card prices drop recently. Do you think there's a conversation in there? And if so, like, do you have any thoughts on what that might look like?
Yeah, again, you've talked about this, so it's not breaking news, but I think it's worth saying again. I think if people don't realize how good these legendary summoners are that have been released, that's probably been the biggest eye opener for me. And again, I think part of that is there are some game changing abilities in there, especially for specific rule sets like Wands Out with Immortalis. Another thing, I think Astral has become pretty powerful because of all of these soulbound reward cards that have the martyr ability. Because you're essentially getting at least one redemption, and then if you also have the born again rule set, you can be triple martyring up some cards, right?
Yes. And if you do that well with a combination of a scavenge, you start unlocking like a crazy number of hit points. And you can do, especially with the Death Splinter. Again, I like coming into Peak Monsters, and you can search the description, or sorry, the ability. But if you can put like Riftwing, Maggots, Parasitic Growth, Dr. Blight on the same team with picture Slime Ball in the first position with that redemption, with, you want it to die, and then a resurrect associated with from your summoner, it's going to die twice, create two redemptions, which is going to hurt your opponent in the ways you want. Plus, it's giving you two scavenge body points or hit points for every one of those monsters. I said 4. I do that. I'll play Riftwing, Maggots, Parasitic Growth, and Dr. Blight all in the same build, especially in rule sets where it's like, if there's like Noxious Fumes is one of the ways I might fight Noxious Fumes. I'll prefer to look for things like self-heal. But in certain situations, your best play, because of maybe Splinter restrictions or mana cap restrictions, sometimes one of the angles for out surviving it, I'll utilize Scavenge, and Gelatinous Cube is a good example of that, right? It's got that self-heal and the Scavenge, and so it works so well in that context.
Yeah. Another strategy that has popped for me has been Yasik with these really strong archery monsters and fire. My overall win rate with fire is 439, but when you look at some specific cards, I'm 521 with Molten Ash Golem, I'm 566 with Countess Sinash, I'm 582 with Ash Mirage, and I've gotten on a little bit of a cold spell recently with Lava Launcher, but I'm still 485, which is about almost 50 basis points above my fire average. And for the longest time, I was, well into the 500s with Lava Launcher as well, too. And so I think Yasik is a great way to counter things like Thorns and Reflection Shield, and especially with those strong archery monsters.
Absolutely. And I agree, but I haven't seen that Yasik be that successful for me. But I am interested. I haven't fully dived into why. I know I can use the tool to look at that, and I should, and I will. But I just mostly steer away. Like as you've alluded to when you were looking at your summoners, there are some where I'm struggling. Fire is one of them. And I think it might be because I just don't have some of the cards. Like look at this, 24 and 37 for Conqueror Yasik for me. And my rating on fire is 448. And my rating on water, 500, 429 on green, 493 on white. Death is 587 and dragon is 551. So there's like, these are my death and dragon. When they're around, I will thrive, and water is doing just fine too. But I suffer when I have to rely on my fire team. I suffer when I have to rely, surprisingly, when I have to rely on my earth team. Look at that. It's a 429. That was my worst of all of them. And what, you know what it is? It's right here. Wizard of Eastwood, man. He's been, I need to like sell this card. I need to give it away for free. It's hurting me.
That's funny. That's General Sloan for me. I'm even though I've gotten on a little bit of a hot streak with Sloan recently, and I use the term hot streak loosely, i.e. I'm not losing 70% of my games with General Sloan.
Yep.
But I'll look real quick. I think I still have a sub 400 winning percentage with that summoner.
This is gross. Like
383. I'm 23 and 37 with Sloan. But again, I did a little digging, and I'll see if this is still holding. So mana cap range, low mana, he's holding up. He's 5 and 3, 625 winning percentage, and 12 to 19. And then it drops there. One other thing I've noticed too is when I notice I'm having success with a specific card or in a specific place, I'll start using it more.
Yeah.
And then either that success holds up and it kind of proves to be true, or it proves to be that it just needed more iterations and it's getting closer to 500, or how I play at 478,
That's right. You're totally right. You think that happened with Immortalis, because we talked offline before, like when I started using Splintercoach, and you were like, Immortalis, he wins a lot. I'm like, wow, he does. And I started doubling down on it. And now I'm at a 500 level with him, which is, it's good. That's for my green team. Like I need to play Immortalis or I'm in trouble. That's not
Yep.
entirely true. Obsidian obviously has her space, but man, like this is like Wizard of Eastwood to be 3 and 12. I mean, I honestly should just stop playing that. Like, I mean, something it's just not working. And the minus armor, any of those summoners like that where it's like minus to your opponent, you're just counting that the opponent is going to bring that thing that you're going to nerf. And if they don't, then you get no benefit out of it. Hey.
Yep. Absolutely. Another little curious if you've been seeing this from a gameplay meta standpoint. Maybe it's just my personal bias because I've been leaning into it more often, therefore I've been noticing it. But poison has become a lot more prominent for me, both good and bad. And so one card I've started leaning into when I have the mana to do it is Harclaw. Because with immunity, Harclaw cannot be poisoned. But I've been focusing on, leaning. I can't believe this didn't dawn on me till recently, but the Aim True rule set, I've been starting to play as many poison monsters as possible because why not? You're guaranteed a hit, right? So why not also increase the chance you're going to land some poison on your opponent? So I've had lineups where I've had Uraeus, Blight, Soul Strangler, and there's a fourth one that I know I'm missing, but I've had up to Bonesmith. I've had lineups where I'm playing all four of those, and then you throw Hardclaw up front with the death unit who can't be poisoned, and that's been a bit of an interesting play for me.
You know what you're making me wonder about, and it could be like a feature update. It might be too complicated, I don't know, but I'll say it anyways. I don't know if you ever grew up playing Super Nintendo. Did you play Super Mario Kart?
I didn't play much Mario Kart. I'm a bit older. I was an Atari guy.
Okay. So guys out in the chat, if you remember, of course, like people remember Super Mario Kart, it's such a good game. I mean, whether you played it for Super Nintendo or whether you played it for N64, classic gaming experience. That sort of game where you broke some controllers if you're like me because you snuck across the line 1 inch before you because he power slid around the corner or something crazy like that. But fun game. One of the cool things that came out of that game was there was a time trial thing. So Jamie, what you would do is you could race yourself, and we talked about with golf earlier. You're playing yourself. You want to beat yourself. You would race a certain course, and then you would immediately re-race it, and it would give you a ghost that you could race against. That's your previous best time. And interesting, like in the application of Splinter Coach, when you were talking about the I think you said it was Aim True, but really any sort of context where you could bring in poison, and really, what I like using that one in is Scattershot, when it's the Scattershot rule set, because yes, I want to disperse as much poison as I can on my opponent. And I'm finding that the usefulness of poison is really, really powerful. And that then makes me keep coming back to the thought, is Waka Spirit Blade better than people have given him credit for? And I don't use him. I sometimes rent him, and I have had success with him. I haven't rented him recently. I should. I'm going to rent him maybe for a week and see what the data says. But my point in bringing it up is, what if there was like a capacity within Splinter Coach for like not only tracking, I know this would get hairy if you started going too far with it, but let's say not only tracking my personalized data, but give me the one card that partners the most commonly across all users with that summoner. Do you know what I mean? And then, or even Dwayne, you're using Dr. Blight, I showed you the data earlier. Dwayne, you're using Dr. Blight in the context of Astral Entity, and you're winning. How often was I doing it? Actually, it wasn't Astral Entity. Let's just pull up that data quickly. With Thaddeus Brood, I'm using Dr. Blight, and I get a 641 win rate with Thaddeus, and with Dr. Blight, I'm 17-11. Okay. Other users that have the similar build use Dr. Blight and they win at, 651 or whatever. Or other users with Thaddeus, like just slash best user 6666 or something, whatever the case may be. Some like there would be this benchmark that I know exists out there, and it wouldn't need to be this deep kind of detailed deep dive on what other people are doing, but maybe just a hint, a glimpse at what others are doing, so that I might be like, hey, I'm either leading the way in this, or I'm actually, there's room for me to improve on what already is working. Do you see an opportunity there? Would that be maybe possible even? I don't even know.
Yeah, so yes, it's absolutely possible. And yes, it's something we want to do. We're pretty fortunate. One of the one of the developers who helped us build this, he's very good with databases, right? And he's very good at working with that type of stuff. So it's been great watching you share this tool with your community, because I've gotten to just watch you organically use it. And one thing I've noticed about how you use it is when you go to the card page, you naturally go to the top 5 most played. Like, I think that's something you find very interesting.
Yes.
And so we would love to your point, maybe there's even just a top 5 most played by the community, right? Or the overall. So that could be another quick read. So you can compare, hey, am I kind of zigging when the rest of the community is zagging?
Yeah.
And then is that working for me, or is that not working for me? We would love to put that's one of, trust me, I've got so many things I want to do with this, but that's right at the top of the list.
That feels like it could be a cool VIP perk, by the way, because you know why? Because that tool would be very powerful in the capacity to identify little ways to tweak your game to improve your rewards. And so if it was just, and maybe you just do make it, for everybody, but I'm saying you could track it in the background and like provide it on the VIP side, because then they're going to have that inside edge on how to just carve out just a little bit more wins. Just even, if you win, 3 times more every time you play 50 battles or something, that's 6% of your battles. Like, that's a dramatic difference, and that's going to translate to more chests daily, more chests seasonally, more soulbound reward cards. You're going to be, once you get those extra, you get that edge on soulbound reward cards, it starts to be this snowball, because now you've got even better cards that no one else has. So advantages such as this right now, I think, are pretty powerful.